Hey y'all, sorry about missing you yesterday. I was a little under the weather, but everything's much better today. So I'm looking forward to seeing you soon. We are starting today's lesson with decimals, and decimals is way easier to me personally than fractions. So I don't think we should really have many struggles with decimals. The easiest way for me to think about decimals is to think about money. I like money. I like shopping. I like making money. I like spending money. And so as long as I think about decimals as money, I don't really get overwhelmed or confused by it. I just think, ooh, I'm working with dollars, and that's okay. The first part of decimals that we have to understand, though, would be place value, what the names of the decimal places are, and then how to round those, okay? So to start with, we have our big number up here, and our number has a decimal in the middle. And anytime you're reading a number as a statement or as a sentence with words that has a decimal, the decimal is read as and. So I'm going to read this as 123 and 4,567 ten thousandths. Okay? So my decimal place values that we're going to work with personally are the tenths. And notice that it ends in THS. So tenths is behind the decimal, whereas tens is in front of the decimal. Okay? So we have tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and ten thousandths. So you just need to remember to practice reading your decimals as they would be in words by saying and as your decimal. So I'm going to write another decimal number up here, and we're going to practice saying the decimal. Okay, in this number, we have 462 and 1,278 ten thousandths. Okay, now I could change this number. Now we would have 62 and 127 thousandths. Okay, I could change it again. Now I have 2 and 12 hundredths. Okay, so it's real easy to say them in word form as long as you know your place values. Okay, so you might want to pause the video if you don't already know this and make sure you write this down. So let's talk about rounding. We learned rounding, I think our first class period, maybe our second class period, but we'll get a little refresher quickly just so you remember the rules. I'm going to write my rules up here first. Okay, if your boss number is, okay, so if your boss number is 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, you just keep the same. And if your boss number is 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, you're going to add 1. So we'll look at a non-decimal number first, just as a refresher. If I told you that I wanted you to round this number to the nearest 10, I'm going to look on here and I'm going to go, okay, so which number is in the tens place? My 6 is in the tens place. So I'm going to underline it so I remember. Now, the boss number is always the number directly behind the place you're rounding to. So this is my boss number. I always circle my boss number. He is bossing us around. He's the big guy for me right now. So look at my boss number. It's a 7. If my boss number is 7, I add 1. I add 1 to the place I'm rounding to. So I keep my 1 the same. It's in front of everything. It stays the same. I add 1 to my 6, which becomes 7. And then everything behind the place I'm rounding to becomes a 0. So 167, round to the nearest 10, is 170. Okay? So when I'm doing this with a decimal number, I follow the exact same rules. We want to round this to the nearest hundredth. Now, hundredth, because it ends in TH, I know is on the right hand or behind my decimal. So my hundredth place is right here, is a 4. So I underline it. That reminds me where I'm rounding to. But then I have to circle what? I have to circle my boss number. Well, my boss number, the number directly behind a 4, is a 7. Look at my rule. If the boss number is 7, I add 1. Keep everything in front of the number the same. Now, my boss number is a 7. I know I add 1. I'm adding the 1 to the place that I'm rounding to. So that becomes a 5. Everything behind it becomes 0. Okay? So 48 and 747 thousandths becomes 48 and 750 thousandths. Okay? Now, if I had the number... I have the number 967 and 982 thousandths. And I told you to round to the hundredths place. Okay? I'm going to look at my number, and I know that this 8 is in my hundredths place. So I know my boss number is a 2. Now, if your boss number is a 2, we're going to keep this number the same. So I write down everything in front of my decimal. My 8 remains the same, and everything else becomes a 0. Okay, so that's rounding decimals. It's just like rounding any other number. There's just a decimal or a dot or an and in the middle of it. Remember your place value so that you remember the names and how to say them, and this will be easy for you.